Hello, my friends. It's Sabrina. It's Tuesday, September 16th, and welcome to my channel. My name is Sabrina, and this is Tree of Life Inner Guidance. What this channel is all about is for me to just offer some, I call them coping skills in today's crazy times. So I'm new to YouTube, but I'm not new to giving these talks. I started these talks almost a year ago now on Facebook, and I've switched over to a YouTube platform. And I do hope you like the channel. If you like the content, I'm just getting going. So there's some few videos up there. I hope you do like it. I invite you to please subscribe if you will. Like the content by hitting that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you like it, please share with your friends, subscribe, and all that stuff. So a little bit about me. I have been in the fitness world for over 40 years. But if you're not into fitness, that's okay. This video has nothing to do with fitness at all. And I started messing with astrology over 30 years ago. I had a friend who was very into astrology, and I was in the whole community of astrologers and kind of hung out with the Seacoast Astrological Association in New Hampshire. And from there, I got introduced to tarot and runes and all sorts of things I call in the esoteric lines. So I am going to do a little tarot today, just because it's going to go along with what we're going to talk about. So if you hear cat meowing in the background, my Miss Gigi is just being insufferable, standing at the gate to try to get in this room with me. So she's fine, nothing's wrong, but if you hear a little, sorry. Anyway, what I want to talk about today, and it has been wild in the United States the last few days. I mean, the last almost a year, it's been wild, but it seems to be getting wilder. So my talk today is about perception. Now, I have some notes here because I do have a lot of material to talk about regarding perception. And I don't know where I got this little comment from, and I would certainly give credit to wherever I got it from if I knew. And this kind of spurred my talk today. So how I do these talks and decide on a topic, something just comes to me. I guess it's from spirit, the universe, the guides, whoever wants me to reach out to you and try and help or try and calm your nerves some, gives me a topic, and I kind of seem to have a never-ending amount of material to talk about. So today it's perception, and perception is not always based on the truth. I'm going to hold that up for you because I wrote it down from someplace, so you can take a look at that. Folded that kind of funny. Perception is not always based on the truth. Okay. How I got on this kick. I scroll through Facebook. Now, it looks like I'm on Facebook a lot. I'm really not. I have 2 huge Pilates groups on there, over 11,000 members. So I have to go in there, monitor those groups, and I do keep a very tight leash on that content because people can get very nasty, and we will have no nasty grams on there. So I went in, did what I needed to do to organize my groups, and then I'll scroll and I'll look at a few things that people post and listen to some of the videos, and then I'm out of there. So I saw a post from a friend of mine. Now this friend and I go back, way back, over almost 30 years ago now, when I first became a fitness presenter and got sent all over the world training instructors. And she was a colleague. And I read her post, and I was floored. I was absolutely floored. I was gasping. And I looked at it again, and I'm like, wow, where did they get this stuff from? Where did they get this information from? How can that be so different from the information that I know? How can that be? So I thought about perspective and perception, and I thought, because this woman is lovely. She is funny. She is just a sweet human being, a wonderful person. And I just did not even the slightest see eye to eye with her. And I just could not understand where she was coming from at all. And of course, I was not about to approach her because I already had that conversation 10 years ago and I didn't feel like having it again. So I did a little more research and I looked online. Excuse me 1 minute. Gigi. Sorry. So I looked online and I scrolled through a lot of stuff and I did some reading, and I came to realize that your perception can also be tainted by many things, good and bad. Now, this individual's perception was completely different from mine. I did not agree with it. She would not agree with me. Now, if you combined the two, if you were combined what she thought of this situation and what I thought, and you looked at the evidence out there, if you combine the two, it's a little bit in between, a little bit in between. But I also think that we all have our avenues of where we get information. Good, bad, or ugly, true, not true, but we go to those same avenues, okay? It's like you go to the same restaurants, okay? There's a few restaurants here where I'm at in New Mexico that I love, and I will go to one of those restaurants. Occasionally I'll try a new one, and much to my delight, I might really love trying that new restaurant, but we go back to what we're used to. That's just what we do as humans. So when I was thinking about, I was just so shocked at her perception that's why I had to look it up. And come to find out, it seems that a lot of people have that same perception and only have seen this situation under that light because they go to their sources for information, and those are the only sources they go to. And they don't look at other information. They don't try out any other restaurants. So they go to the ones that they go to, and they're not interested in trying any other ones because why should I? Same thing with me. My perception of this whole situation, now I didn't know anything about this situation. I had to go look it up when it happened. So I was like, oh man, this is a hot mess. I got to see what's going on here. So I looked, I read, I observed, and I was like, wow, I didn't know that. And I really didn't know the other side of this whole situation. So now I'm only seeing my side of the situation because I went to my sources. So what I did is I had to cross the aisle and say, well, there's other sources, and I want to know what's going on, what these other sources are saying, and how can it be so skewed? So what I think in this particular situation is some people only want to see and believe what they think is true, and we all do this. I do this too. However, this is all going to tie together, as my talks always do tie together. You know, I had to cross the line because I was only seeing things from my point of view. So when you cross the line and try to see where somebody else is coming from, or see where they are gleaning their information from, that is going to give you, if nothing else, perhaps a little understanding of the situation and why they see things the way they see things. And I think that if we understand other people's perception, where they get the perception from, why they have that perception, that's only going to help us. Now, if they don't want to see our perception, we can't do anything about that. Nothing can we do. So we need to, for our own sake, go out, seek out other perceptions, and try to understand the differences, where it's coming from. Because if you can understand a situation, I think you will feel better. And you're doing this for you. You're not doing this for other people. So you're trying to understand the other perceptions so that you can feel better, have a better understanding, and calm your own nervous system. Okay? You're not doing this to agree. You're not doing this to switch to the other side of the other perception. You're not doing any of that. You're doing this to help understand why these people might feel the way they feel. So, along these lines, I have been a workshop presenter for, I guess, even more than 26 years now, because I trained instructors for 26 years, and that stopped with COVID. So I guess 30 years now I've been designing programs and workshops. And that when I would present workshops for a company, I was contracted. At one point, I was contracted by 3 different companies to present their programs worldwide. And I have a personality. Everybody has their own personality. I have a presentation style. I like to present and have fun and laugh, but get the information across. Because if you're teaching someone who is going to take a test, they're nervous, they're edgy, they're scared, and you have to create a learning environment for them that relaxes them, that they have fun, because they are going to absorb the information much better that way. So I would go out there and be my Sabrina self and do my thing and laugh and have fun. And I usually would have 4 cups of coffee, down them before I would go on at 8 o'clock in the morning, because I'm not a morning person. And I was reared up and ready to go. So because I worked for other companies and I was a contractor, at the end of these programs, you had to give out an evaluation. So sometimes there would be, 100 people in a program. Sometimes there'd be 10, 50. It just would depend. So what would happen is at the end, I'd compile all the evaluations when I was collecting them. And then when I worked for the other companies, a couple of them, the company owner was there, took my program, and would collect the evaluations. What does this have to do with perception? We would sit and read the evaluations. Now, I have to tell you, when someone says your evaluation doesn't bother them, they're lying. It will bother you for a little bit, and then you're like, you just kind of toss it to the side, because after you've been doing it for 26 years, 25, 30 years, you've seen all the different evaluations that come back. So what happens is, you'll have, and what I would look for now, I would also have people evaluate instructors that I was training. I would get the evaluations back when I ran programs in gyms. And when I would get those evaluations, I was always looking for a common denominator. What do I mean by a common denominator? If you have 20 evaluations, and out of the 20 evaluations, let's say you have 17 that are great. Oh, we had a great time. Sabrina was wonderful. She's funny. She should be doing stand-up, whatever. I'm not going to do stand-up because I'm sitting right now. Anyway, and then you'd have one that was, or a couple that were like, oh, it was okay. I wish she would have X, Y, Z. Okay. And then you'd have one that, I would look at it and the company owner would look at it, and we just look at each other and say, were they in the same program? Did they take the same workshop as these other 19 people? Because their evaluation would be so far off in left field that we were like, what happened? Okay. Perception. So this person's perception was so completely different from all the other attendees for whatever reason. Now, could we do anything about that? If the evaluation was nasty enough, one of us might have reached out, but I never got any super nasty evaluations. They weren't always stellar, but I would say 96% were. So back to the common denominator. If we go through a pile of evaluations and there was a common denominator, She didn't go over X, Y, and Z. She didn't go over X, Y, and Z. She didn't go over X, Y, and Z. So, or she did say some this, that, and the other thing. You would look for a common denominator that 4 or 5 people would say. And before you would do anything about it, or discuss it with an employee, if there's a problem, you would have another evaluation round. And if it's the same common denominator again, then it's time to have a conversation. Okay. So let's say this person did not clearly explain origin and insertion where the muscle groups are. I know you don't need to know anything about that. But if I saw that over and over again and I was training an instructor, I would have a sit down with them and I would say, listen, nothing's wrong, nothing's bad. We have something that needs addressed because I keep seeing it over and over and over again. So we're going to have to attend to this because what's going on right now is not working for the group. Okay, so that's how I would handle evaluating someone. If it was a one-off nasty, that person was having a bad day, who knows? And as you know, if someone's super nasty, it is often about them. It's not about you. It's where they're coming from at that moment. So anyway, when we would get these evaluations back, it was always based on the people's perception of the program, where 96% perceived that it was a great time. They learned a lot. It was fabulous. Can't wait to attend the next one. And there were, a handful of so-sos. What would have been really interesting is to sit down and see where the so-so people were coming from. Because where you are going to glean the most information that is helpful to you is when somebody that has a different viewpoint than yours explains their viewpoint in a civil manner, not scream and holler and let's go at it, bang, bang, bang. Why were you feeling that way? And why did you say those things about the workshop? Well, now we're talking about life. So again, perception. You could have 20 people take a program, 2 people come out of there and you look at their evaluation and you have no idea that it's like they weren't even in the same room. What would be super interesting is to have had a conversation with them and understand why they felt that way. And then it may make sense. Instead of getting offended, you'd be like, oh, I never thought of that. Okay. So now back to more stuff on perception. So when I owned a Pilates studio back in New Hampshire, I had a studio there for 10 years. And there was a woman that I considered very logical. She was about as spontaneous as a dead mule, but she was extremely even keel, very logical, looked everything in the eye with such great logic. I so admired that. Her feathers would not get ruffled, and she would just look at a situation and say, well, boom, boom, boom. And I would look at that same situation, and after I tossed my hair around and said, then I would say the same thing. Oh yeah, boom, boom, boom. Or mostly the same thing. But what I would do is I confided in her because she was also another business owner. And I would say, can I meet up with you? Let's go to dinner. I'll take you to dinner. We'll have a couple drinks and I want to talk to you about some stuff. So I would talk to her about business stuff. I would say that I'm thinking of doing ABC. This is how I think it's going to be viewed. How are you perceiving these changes that I'm going to make? What do you think people are going to have to say about that? And she would give me her perspective, which I found extremely valuable because we all see things through our own lenses, okay? It's like, I have on the rosy colored glasses and my friend is, wearing smoky quartz and someone else is, wearing blue agate glasses. And when you look through those colors, everything changes. But when you sit down and you have a conversation with another person who is going to see things differently, that's when you can really learn. You can learn about you, how you see things and why you see them that way, coming from your own perspective and background. But take the information from the other person and say, you know what? Not everybody's going to see things the way I see them. So if you could glean wisdom from another person's perspective, that's where you can also grow as a human being, where you can gain more compassion, more empathy, more understanding, and more insight into not everybody operates the way you do, and not everybody comes from the same background, upbringing, situations that you do. So this is how you learn to be a better human, I think. Okay. And one more thing I'm just going to touch on as far as perception goes. I think that when you're in different situations, I'm going to give another situation. So I'm a Pilates instructor, personal trainer. I've been doing it my whole entire existence, cheerleader in high school and whatever, choreographer for the flag band and color guard, whatever. So, and I've taken a lot of training. I've taken a ton of training. I've taken too much training. In fact, at one point I said, stop taking training. Okay, just give it a rest. So what will happen when I teach at different places, because I know I'm not the best instructor, I'm not the greatest, and I'm not in any way saying that, but I have learned a lot over 40 years of teaching. So I'll go in and teach a class and I'll say XYZ. I'm a corrections officer. I go around and correct people and fix them. And I try to say why. I think it's very important why. And another thing on perception, why. But anyway, so I would say, we're going to do this. This is why you're going to do this. And this is how it's going to help you. So when we would teach exercises to new and upcoming instructors, the first thing you do is you state the name of the exercise, you state what it's for, and then you do the setup, and then you do the execution, and then you do modifications. So when I would correct people and give the reasons why, and then, at the end of class, people would say, oh, thanks, Sabrina, that was great, and nobody else corrects us like you do. Why don't they correct? And I said, they don't know. They don't know how to correct. Because a lot of people in the industry I'm in are up and coming. There's a lot of young people, which is fantastic, because hopefully those young people will make it a career. I'm a career fitness person. Okay. It's what I started at 20, and I've been doing it forever, all along. But when you first start out, you don't even know what you don't know. So people in class have a perception, of course, that I'm a corrections officer, and they're thinking, well, why aren't the other people doing that? And they may perceive that those other instructors are some kind of way. I don't know what that way is. And I just said, they don't know. I've been doing this for a long time. So they're just new. Let them teach. They're going to learn as they go along, and hopefully they're going to grow, and they're going to go out and do what I did and take every training known to mankind in hopes to glean more information, which is fabulous. And I still feel like I don't know anything, but I'm fairly good at what I do. But it's another way that these people have a perception now of different instructors, and that's just going to happen. It's going to happen in life. Now, if these folks had asked me these questions, if they said, oh, Sabrina's just been doing this for a really long time. And anytime, you've done your craft for, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 40 years, you do kind of fine tune and begin to master your craft, but there is always opportunity for growth and learning. So that's another perception thing. You see perception all the time in everything that you do. And I just had another episode of perception, and this just happened, excuse me a minute. This is tea, not tequila, unfortunately. Anyway, I signed up for this little talk that was going to describe a elongated workshop series that I wanted to decide if I was going to sign on for this. So I really didn't have any expectations in any different direction. I knew nothing. I mean, I know about the content that this gentleman was talking about, but I didn't know what he was going to do or say or be. So I get on the program, and the absolute first thing I was astonished about, and this has to do with perception, is when you saw this gentleman, his really long hair. I mean, his hair looks kind of like mine. I did not do my hair today. It is clean, but I didn't do anything with it. And his hair looks just like mine. And he had a really long beard that had beads in it. So at first glance, you would get a little edgy because he's a big guy, long hair. I was waiting for him to get out his sword and his shield and go to war, which I wasn't that far off because it's kind of those studies. But I was so surprised to hear him speak. He was kind of soft, and he was very engaging. And my first immediate, you could say first impression, but my perception was totally blown out of the water when he started talking. And, I was just sitting there and I was mesmerized by this man. He's a handsome man, but that wasn't why I was mesmerized. I was mesmerized by his demeanor when he spoke. And it was lovely. It was really, really lovely. And it was surprising, I readily admit. And, like I said, I looked at him and I thought that, the Viking war god Odin was going to be present, but it was just so different. And as he was giving his spiel and, doing the interview, he gave me a whole different perception on these. It was a rune workshop. He gave me a whole different perception on looking at the runes. Now, runes are Nordic. They were from the Germanic people many, many centuries ago. And I'm putting together a workshop myself on runes because they fascinate me. Obviously, I'm Norwegian. I'm pretty sure I probably had a sword and a shield and was in battle. At one point, I'm quite sure I was probably a man. I have no idea. I could have been a horse in a past life. But so as he's talking, I'm like, wow, I just never thought of doing that. I never thought of looking at things that way. So because he gave me his perception on how he views the runes, I gleaned so much from that because it was his perception. And I thought, I'm going to start looking at them a little bit differently. And it was just a revelation for me. Needless to say, I did sign up for the class, and it's a 7-week thing. And I'm very fascinated to see what this just very soft and compassionate speaking man has to teach me. I'm very excited about that. But I was very shocked. And it's a perception thing too. I looked at him and I thought he was going to be one way. He was completely different. And I think we do that to a whole lot of people in our lives. We do it all the time. I mean, you look at someone and you're already forming an opinion and they haven't done anything. It happens to me all the time. I walk into a room, I don't say a word. I walk in and I stand there, and people feel about me some kind of way. And I don't know what that is. I guess I have some sort of presence. I've always been told that. But anyway, so to go along with this talk on perception, I pulled out a few tarot cards, and it was fascinating. So when I told you before in previous videos, I don't shuffle the cards when I'm here to get them ready because I have super small hands. And just for an example, you can see how big this deck is. I have such a super hard time shuffling that I'm afraid all the cards are going to go flying when I'm on here live. So I shuffle the cards, I pull a couple out before I get on here, and lo and behold, they always kind of match what the talk is about. And, the cards don't lie. So I'm going to show you 3 different tarot decks. I pulled 2 cards from each deck. And I also have here, I have the traditional Rider Waite deck. I have it all framed up. That one right there, it's all the court cards. I have all the major arcana here framed up, and I'm going to show you those and how different these are. And then I have also all the minor arcana here, starting with the aces and on down. So it's just fascinating. Now, why am I using tarot cards for this? Because they're going to tell the story too. These tarot decks are completely different from the traditional Rider-Waite deck, which is one I learned on, which is this one here. It just has a different background made to look more antique. And their three different perceptions are just something else. And they really kind of go along with what we're talking about here. So the first deck, and I would like to thank Scott Harrison for this, because I saw this on his, it's Scott Scorpio Sun Tarot, the Westwood Tarot deck. It comes in this little, almost like a book, super cute. So I'm going to show you the two cards that come up for that. So now we have the Page of Pentacles. Now I'm going to try and hold that there so it's not too glary. So look at that little pig. This makes me laugh. This deck is pretty adorable. So the Page of Pentacles, in the court cards, the page is usually refers to a young person that's just starting out. And they really don't know quite what's going on yet, but they want to learn. And it depends on what they want to learn about. So as you look at this little piglet here, he's got his hat on and look at his face. He's so curious, so curious. He wants to learn new things. Pentacles is usually about material things, about money, stability. So he's got a whole stack of books behind him. Now, this is what this artist came up with for the Page of Pentacles. So it's this very curious little pig, young piglet, that wants to learn. And he's looking at you like, wow, what are you doing? Can you teach me that? Let's talk about that. I want to know all about that. Now, when I show you the Page of Pentacles and the Rider-Waite deck, it's hysterical. Okay, so I'm going to pull that up so you can see it. There is your Page of Pentacles in the Rider-Waite deck. That does not look much like Mr. Piglet at all. The greenery is there. The pentacle is on the piglet's hat. The other page is holding that pentacle. There's greenery in the background. He's got a green suit on. So when I see pentacles, I think of the earth signs, very grounded, but two completely different looking things. And if I pulled out a different tarot card from the Page of Pentacles from each deck, it would be that artist and designer's perspective on what they thought the Page of Pentacles meant. Now, this is beautiful. All right, this is the Ace of Wands. Wands is all about new beginnings, usually great stuff. And look at that beautiful sunflower with that wand coming out of there. In the original tarot deck, they were called batons. So now we have a beautiful sunflower. I want you to see it again. It's so pretty. I want to frame it. Okay, we have butterflies coming up off of that wand. So it's almost like the wand is like a stamen, like tiger lilies have, coming out of the sunflower. Okay, beautiful new beginning. Ace of Wands, fire. Wands represent fire. Batons, rods. Okay, now where is my ace here? Okay, this is going to make you laugh. Sorry. Can you see that Ace of Wands right there? Now, if I could get that close enough to you, which I probably can, it almost looks like something obscene that we shouldn't be showing on YouTube, but it doesn't mean that. But you see, it's a brand new branch. It's a brand new wand. It's a brand new beginning, but it is just so super duper different from the Westwood Tarot deck. Again, perception. Now, this next deck is kind of fun, but they do things a whole lot differently. Oops, let me get my act together here. So this is the Witch's Wisdom deck. Now, this is very interesting. So the first card, and I drew two major arcana, which is usually a big deal. So I want you to take a look at this. Now this is number 21 on here. So this is not number 21 in the regular traditional tarot deck, Rider-Waite. And this is their number 21. And it's called the Council of All Beings. So you see a whale, you see a tiger, you see an antelope and a horse and a giraffe and the Council of All Beings. This is the Magician in the tarot deck. Now that is their take. So if you just don't even look at the number on there, which I found super confusing, the Magician is the manifester. And as we look on here, you see the Magician, get rid of that glare, looks completely different. Okay. He has the infinity symbol there. He has a cup. He has a wand. There's a sword in there someplace. So all of the elements are there. But that Magician is absolutely nothing like the Council of Beings. Okay. Perception. Okay. We're going to do one more here. Same deck, which is Wisdom. This is crazy. Look at this. The maze. This is the Tower in the traditional Rider-Waite deck. So when you look at this, you see the thunder and lightning in the background. You're going to see that in the Tower when I pull that up. Okay, if you already know tarot cards, you're already looking at this and saying, wow, that is super different. And it's number 6 on here. And the Tower is not number 6. But the maze is confusion, illusion, you know, stormy weather in the background, all kinds of things can blow up and occur. Nobody likes to see the Tower card. It's not always bad, but it is an upset or something, a sudden change. Very Uranian energy, in my opinion, although allegedly it's ruled by Mars. So we've got the Tower right down here. Can you see that? The Tower. All the people flying out of there. And, you know, I think this card makes me super edgy these days because it reminds me of 9/11. And I don't like the Tower. as long as it's a good thing, we like the Tower. But it's an edgy card because something's going to change. But it does kind of make you feel better looking at this that represents the Tower, but still that maze. You're not sure what's going to happen. Anything could come out from behind that maze. So different. And then the last deck, it's kind of fun because this picture right here is on the very first video that I did, and it came up again. Page of Cups. Page of Cups is a new beginning. Love, romance, magic, a new project. And again, I don't even need to think to show you any of these other things because they're just so super different. We'll just put it up over here for fun. Very, very different. And on this particular deck, it has the meaning written on it. And the other one I drew up from this same deck. I do love this deck. It's adorable. There it is. Okay. The Wandering Star Tarot. And here is the Two of Swords. Two of Swords is choices. You're blindfolded, so you really don't know which way to go. This almost makes it look pleasant. It's not always pleasant, but the colors are beautiful. The two swords are there, and it does say on there, choice, decision, but they're just all so very different. So consider just tarot decks alone, how different they are and how people perceive the meaning of each of these cards to the point where the artwork is completely different, or they've changed the numbers, changed the images. It's a perception. And so what do we do with these perceptions? So like me, looking at tarot cards, I'm just like, wow, I would have never in a million years thought to put Mr. Piglet on there as the Page of Pentacles, wanting to be in the know and wanting to learn and being curious. and wanting to, build on things. I would have never in a zillion years had a council of beings for the magician. But perception, again, these people's perceptions, all these stacks of decks I have behind me all over the place, and oracle cards, by seeing and trying to understand someone else's perception is going to enlighten you more in many different ways. So, in closing this talk, you're going to see a lot of different perceptions right now. And where we started out with, I'm going to hold this up just one more time. I want to remind you, perception is not always based on the truth. It's just someone else's perception. It might not be how things are. So your mission is to go out and step outside of your own perception and try and learn where some of these others are coming from, so you can become more enlightened and more understanding, and perhaps show a little bit more compassion and empathy instead of rage and anger, because they don't see things the way you see things. Now, I'm not saying you're going to turn over and you're going to agree with anybody because of their perception once you understand what it is. But what it will do is it will help you. It will help you. And that's why I come on here with these talks in hopes that they will help you. And today's talk on perception, if you do try and see other people's perception, understand where they're coming from, where, why, how they glean that information, it at least will help you understand more about them. They may never understand more about you, because I think it takes a lot, I don't know, chutzpah or whatever you want to call it, from an individual to go out and try to understand where other people are coming from. And I don't do it enough myself, but I certainly I'm trying. And that's all we can do, is try. And I hope this video gave you some helpful ideas to go out and try and help to understand others and the perceptions. So rather than rage and adding to the emotional whiplash going on out there right now and the collective chaos, that you can say, you know what? I can see where they're coming from. I don't agree. They're not going to come over and meet me halfway, but I don't need to go to them in a rage because they don't see things the way I see things. Now just think, if everybody in the world did that, if everybody tried to understand, you don't have to agree, but if they tried to see the other person's perception, where they're coming from, why they behave the way they behave, I think it would get rid of a whole lot of hatred in this world. I really do. And I'm hoping that changing your perception or understanding someone's perception will also get you out of any rage or hatred or discomfort that you're in this environment which we live in today. So I hope this helped you. Thank you for stopping by. It would be awesome if you would subscribe if you'd like. The chat, that would be great. And blessings to you, and have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.